Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Fat Black Women Podcast. I am Deanna Williams and I am your host for this episode. Fat Black Women, as you know, stands for provocative, heightened, audacious, and transformative. And today's topic is about transformation, specifically about transformation that takes place within the lives of women. You remember that song from Climax? It was called The Men All Pause. Well, when it came out, I was singing, and the men oh pause as I walked into the room. It didn't make any sense at the time, but I just heard the word menopause and thought that that's what they were saying, and I had no idea what menopause was, and just sang it, and then I was corrected. That's just a little anecdote. And for a while there, I still didn't really understand what or know what menopause was. I knew that in my teens, my mother in the middle of February in Philadelphia would have all the windows and doors open when it was 0 degrees outside because she had caught a flash. Ooh, I'm flashing, she would say. Why we had to suffer, I didn't know. It was just something that we had to go through. It was later explained to me that menopause was something that women went through when they were no longer able to bear children, and it was called the change of life. And there was a stigma attached to it, and it wasn't anything that was really talked about it. And actually, menopause was associated with being old, and so that was not a positive thing. So again, menopause was a aging thing, women being put out to pasture, our good years were over, so on and so forth. And even to this day, menopause kind of still has that same taboo, but the tides are changing, and menopause is now getting a little bit of the attention, and companies and politicians and celebrities, specifically Halle Berry, are starting to shed some light on menopause and what women go through and are experiencing menopause, and how to navigate these things, and making the subject destigmatizing the subject and making it less taboo for women to discuss in open forums, and specifically in the workplace. And that's what I want to talk about today, because the the things that women experience in menopause, yes, it affects their personal life, but it does affect their professional life. And it's because it goes unspoken, and because it goes unexplored, and because it is something that half of the segment of the population at a certain point in their life experiences, the majority of the world at one particular time doesn't understand what it really means to be going through um, the change. And it's not just all in our heads. So we know that the standard symptoms are hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings, and now we're learning about weight gain, and there are other symptoms that may come with it, like restless leg syndrome, which I suffer from, depression. It just, the list goes on and continues to grow. And there are therapies that we can take, hormone replacement therapies, exercises, foods that we can adjust our um, diets to, so that it helps kind of abate these symptoms, but we still have to go through this. But what's happening today that I was pleased to learn as I was surfing the website is that companies, a lot of them in the UK, and some in the US, are jumping on board, are starting to offer um, menopause related benefits for their employees. I've found that there are 9 in the US that I know of so far. Um, and I'll put them in the comments so that you can do some of your own research. But there are 9 in the US who are taking menopause seriously and offering benefits to their employees and offering in those benefits education for their employees to understand what menopause is and how it can affect and so on and so forth. And one of those um, is Bank of America. Bank of America has been doing a very good job as of late in terms of um, expanding their benefits, expanding their ESG um, programs or ESG initiatives. I know that they kind of moved away from DEI a few years ago, but expanding their ESG initiatives where they are more inclusive without being under the umbrella of DEI, but really taking on the concerns and the issues of communities that are marginalized or overlooked or misunderstood in this case. So, Bank of America partnered with the who are they? The National Menopause Foundation. And they put together a study. They did a poll that I think was led by Ipsos. I'll put that information in the comments. And they produced the report Breakthrough the Stigma Menopause in the Workplace. And in that report, they had some key findings about a number of disconnects between employers and how they feel they are supporting women employees and how well those employees feel supported. So I'll give you a few of those findings and just to say that, just to kind of get the conversation started. Um, One of the key findings say that only 14% of employees say their employees recognize the need for menopause related benefits. And the primary reasons employers don't offer menopausal benefits is that employees haven't asked for them. So, as they say, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So if your employers don't offer it, it may be because you haven't asked. The majority of those who do have access to menopause specific benefits say they have had a positive impact on their work in at least one way, mostly by allowing them to bring their best selves to work. So, because you have, or because the company is open to understanding what women in the workplace may be going through, uh, that openness, that understanding allows the women to come in as with their best selves and still do their best work and not necessarily have to worry about being stigmatized or being stereotyped. Oh, she's in a mood swing. Oh, she's being emotional. So that's great. Um, there's a 73 point gap between HR benefit managers, 76% who say they discuss menopause related issues with employees and female employees, and 3% who say they have talked about menopause with HR. So apparently, we need to uh, fix that gap. More of these conversations need to be had. Um, Most employees and HR benefit managers agree menopause is a life stage rather than a medical issue. Well, I think it's both. So there's some learnings that need to come from that. More than half of the women that were polled do not feel comfortable discussing menopause in the workplace because it feels too personal. Well, that's because of the stigma. That's because it's not commonplace conversation, and that's something that needs to change. It needs to be destigmatized and less of a taboo. So one would think, okay, well, we're talking about menopause, and great, fine and dandy. Let's do something about this. Let's include some benefits. What could we do? What are some of those benefits that um, that we could implement that would help? Well, there's a lot. There's virtual counseling that can that women can have access to. There are companies like Midovia that offer their services to companies and their employees to help them navigate this transition in women's lives. They can speak individually to employees, or they can help employers build out programs. So there are things that can be done. There are events that can be sponsored for women as a collective within the companies. There's hormone therapies. There's even menopause leave. So there are things that can be done. Those are just a sampling, but the information is out there, and the opportunities are out there. So there, it isn't like there isn't a solution. Um, there's also a mind shift that we have to consider as millennials are reaching the point where they are experiencing perimenopause, menopause, that point in their lives. They have actually come to expect certain things, which is why I think that the tides are turning. They have come to expect that the parental leave, maternity leave. They have come to expect that they are going to benefit from. They're going to be supported through certain things in their lives. So menopause being one of them. You got to love those millennials because they have actually, their sense of entitlement is going to benefit a lot of us in terms of what they think they deserve and what it is that they think that they have. And I applaud them for that. Um, Another thing that we need to think about is that menopause is affecting a lot of our senior leaders and those women who occupy spaces as supervisors, managers, even C-suiters. And if they're not feeling supported in their journey through menopause, then oftentimes they may just say, forget it, I'm quitting. And many women have. There is, from what I understand, I think uh, perhaps 25% of women going through menopause have considered quitting because of menopause and because it is not understood, it's not respected, it's not discussed. And, they just feel like they're at their wits' end. Well, if senior leadership, if 20 if of those 25%, a good portion of those are senior leadership, and they're considering quitting, then that's going to disrupt productivity and efficiency because you then have to train and elevate a new crop of leaders who may not be ready to assume that position. So that then affects the bottom line. That then affects uh, profitability because you have to stop what you're doing to introduce a new crop of leaders rather than introducing programs for women and in education for companies to understand what may going on in a support system so that there is a safe environment. So this is just some things that you may want to consider in terms of, or might want to think about, companies may want to think about as it relates to adding more benefits to your programs and your provisions. Um, we have to think about the financial impact as it relates to menopause and the effects that it has. Um, we see that the U.S. economy, as a result of menopause, and I found this in the on tech.com. The U.S. economy loses $27 billion annually due to employee menopause symptoms. Wow. So $27 billion annually is lost within the U.S. economy. Now, that was from, I think, 2024. We are now in 2025, and our economy is not doing well at all, despite what Taco says. So, if companies invest a little bit more into providing a support system, then perhaps that loss isn't as drastic as $27 billion, and it that can be applied to something else, to a more sustainable or stable economic system here in the States, because Lord knows uh, we need it. Of that 27 billion, 1.8 billion of that has to do with productivity loss. So again, in this climate, economic climate, we can't afford to lose billions, any billions of dollars. And the flip side of that is what we do know, and we knew this from DEI, is that when employees feel supported, when employees feel encouraged, productivity increases, efficiency increases. They feel incentivized. They feel as if, that the company has invested in them, so that they are going to invest their time, their energy, their excitement into the company and building upon the company's reputation and defending and being those brand ambassadors for the company in a very positive way. So, there are certainly benefits to companies taking the time to explore ways to include menopausal benefits in their offering to their employees. Now, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time with a lot of word salad because it's not necessary. I want to just save, say my piece and just get people to think. Like I said, I will be providing, um, citing where I got my information from, because I really think that it's important for you to do your own research, to formulate your own theories, your own ideas, your own thoughts, because, this is not group think here. But this is a really important topic. As someone who is going through menopause right about now, I can tell you it's a bitch to all of a sudden break out in sweat and have no idea why. It just feels like you have this radiator just permeating throughout your body, to have night sweats where you're just dripping in the middle with sweat in the middle of the night and have no idea, to have this pooch that pops up from what seems out of nowhere, to be in a good mood and then all of a sudden be in the worst funk that you could possibly be in, and which is even further exacerbated if you are depressed and you can't explain why, and have to go into an office and deal with people and put on this mask when all you really want to do is cry. Um, to have these aches and pains and not know where they come from, all at the same time, have this hit all at the same time, and to feel unsupported and not understood, and to be written off or dismissed as just being emotional or sensitive, it's painful. And you start thinking things about yourself that are not true. Your ego is bruised, your self esteem is low. Um, you can go into a dark place and not come out. And you're not given grace. So hopefully, whoever is hearing this, and perhaps this is being shared with someone, you're listening and you are going to take action to do a little bit of research, to do a little investigative work, and to perhaps be an advocate for someone. If this isn't affecting you, but being an advocate for someone, being an advocate for yourself, championing this cause, because it is very important. This affects your mothers, your sisters, your daughters, your daughters. She's going to go through this too. And it's funny, it's a joke, and yeah, we can all laugh about it, but when you are going through this internal hell, it's not funny. It's not a joke. It's very serious, and it affects all of us. So I just want you to take that into consideration. Like I said, I'm not going to keep you. I have said my piece. Uh, Please leave comments, call outs, concerns. Help me understand more. If I'm off the mark on anything, by all means, please correct me. Keep it cute. Constructive criticism always. Vile violence, vitriol never. But I just wanted to bring you some facts from the Fat Black Woman podcast, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. All right. Peace and blessings.